Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Blue, and we're back with another video. This one is actually not going to have anything to do with Feral. It's not going to have anything to do with a guide. So I know I just lost most of my viewers right there, but this one is actually going to be about my experiences with the current patch. Uh, some goods, some bads, but mostly things that I feel like we can progress on. Things that I think the game can progress on. And usually I don't make these videos. I kind of leave it up to some of the bigger YouTubers. Now, the things I'm going to be discussing in this video are things that I haven't seen discussed before. I haven't heard being discussed, and I feel like they should be. Now, I understand that this video may reach other viewers that are not, that are not regular to my channel. Just want to let you guys know, try to please keep it appropriate with the comments, your ideas. I think we need to respect Blizzard, respect the game. We all really enjoy the game, and they're trying their best. There's always a side to the story that I think Blizzard really keeps to themselves, and that's really honorable and respectful for a company. Ian especially, I think he wants to support us, but he's got, the business side aspect of it too. So I think with that, we just need to keep in mind, try to be respectful with our comments, and let's just bring forth ideas to better the game without putting anybody down. With that said, let's get into it. I'm mostly going to be talking about corruption, horrific visions, and then we're also going to be touching quite a bit on Mythic Plus and what we could be changing this patch to make it better and to progress forward, possibly into Shadowlands. Okay, I first want to talk about corruption. Corruption has been a new feature for this game. It brings forth a lot of interesting, fun gameplay. There is a lot of character customization that can be done through corruption. Changes to your class that can be done to corruption. Corruption is really powerful, and I feel that it is a very enjoyable and refreshing part for this game. Now, with that said, there are a few negatives. One is you actually are unable to use the corruption. You're unable to create these builds. I would say that corruption is actually unobtainable. Now, my definition for unobtainable is there is no way in the game for you to get a certain corruption type. There is no way in the game for you to get that. It's all RNG. Now, I don't feel that that's really appropriate for the game, especially seeing how strong corruption is. I don't think it's very appropriate that you make a corruption really strong and there's no way of obtaining it unless you want to spend quite a bit of gold. But in that way, you can't really use corruption for what it really can be used for, what the really fun aspect of it is, which is just creating a different character. Like on my Feral, for example, I would love to create my Feral just a crit machine, just a whole bunch of increase your crits, and then use a few increase your crit damage. That is something I would enjoy doing and I think would be really fun. But there's other things that I can do as well that'd be really fun to do, but it's just not possible unless I have an extreme amount of gold just to spend and waste. With talking about corruption, and also kind of about the gold, how you can spend gold, I don't think it's appropriate for Blizzard to make changes to corruption. Now, I understand that some corruption is extremely strong, and I know that they're trying their best to tune it down, which I also think is fair, but I don't think it's fair in the aspect of, the corruption that we started the patch with is completely different. I'm saying. But Echoing Void, for example, Echoing Void was extremely strong. Echoing Void has been extremely nerfed, and now that potency of Echoing Void you will never get again. You will never be able to use that potency that it was at the very start. So if you didn't clear bosses with that at the beginning, you're lost. Okay, I would have loved to have a really strong Echoing Void in Hive Mind, which my guild is currently progressing in Mythic. Well, I can't ever get that again. Okay, so you can kind of see my example there. Now, with that, I don't think it's fair to make changes to it. Because it's obviously not fair for the rest of the guilds progressing currently. It'd be nice to have it tuned. Um, with that said, things were a little bit too strong, and I feel like corruption in general is too strong. So with that said, it's fair to tune it. I wish it could have been done originally. Um, but also think about the individuals that are paying a lot of gold for these corruptions. Paying a whole bunch of gold for these corruptions because they want to do better. Maybe they want to progress their guild. Maybe their guild is even dropping all that gold to put on a character to help them with the raid or the progression, and then it just gets nerfed out of nowhere. I don't think that's fair. I would want my gold back if I spent that much money. So that's a bummer. Now let's move on to Horrific Visions. I love Horrific Visions. I don't think it should be changed at all. I love that there's difficulty in Horrific Visions. I love that you can't just spam Horrific Visions. Perfect. No complaints there. I love it. This is awesome gameplay by Blizzard. Really great. Okay. Now let's go into Mythic Plus. For me, and this is going to be completely different. I know everybody enjoys the game differently. There's so much in the game. There's different aspects. Some of you guys enjoy farming mounts, farming pets, farming gold. I enjoy progression. But Mythic Plus, I feel for me, Mythic Plus was a really fun aspect of the game. It was raiding, and then it was Mythic Plus. When I didn't raid, I tried to push myself to do better. Push my team, if I'm running with a certain team, push ourselves to get the dungeon done faster. And it was really fun. It was a really enjoyable piece of content. Now, with this patch, that is no longer the case. There is absolutely no reason to farm dungeons if you are already geared, if you already have your gear. Now, part of that I actually love. So let's get that straight. My first week, or I'm sorry, my first few weeks, okay, I really wanted Deadeye Spyglass, as you can see right here. I farmed, let's say, 10 or so siege runs. Took me about 10 to get this to drop, and hey, worth it, gave me a little trinket slot, so I'm not complaining. But what was really cool is right after I'm done with that, I finally got my trinket. I kind of looked back and I was like, wow, not only did I get this trinket, but I got every piece of loot out of that dungeon. And I was like, wow, I actually don't have to run Siege of Borealis ever again. And I really like that. I really like the fact that I'm done. I'm completed. I don't need to do it. But then again, wait. Now there's no reason for me to run any dungeons. Now, with that said, I think it's really sad of me as a player that I'm wasting this enjoyable content because there's no reason for me to do it. Even though it's enjoyable, I'm not going to do it because there's no reason. Now, I was trying to think, why is that? Blue, why is it that I don't want to run these anymore, even though if this is really enjoyable and I love doing it? And the only thing I could come up with is, as a World of Warcraft player, I'm conditioned to do so. World of Warcraft has conditioned me that when I'm playing my game, when I'm playing this, I want to be doing the best, most beneficial thing that I should be doing with my time. Okay? Now, if I know I spend 30 minutes in a dungeon, I could be doing something else. I could be farming my quests to get my Horrific Vision runs, which actually drop a higher loot if I do a 5 chest run or a 5 vision run, right? So really, I'm conditioned to not wanting to run that, even though it's enjoyable, because there is no reward for me. So, that was a huge rant. I want to get down to solutions. I want to get down to the fact that Blizzard makes an amazing game. Every patch, I think they're pressured, I don't know why, but they always produce something new, and I love it. That's awesome. Thank you. Some of the times they don't pay off, but hey, your community backs you. So with that, I think I have some solutions, and I hope this gets out here, and we could possibly, put these solutions forth to Blizzard in some way or another. Okay, first change, corruption. Corruption needs to drop more often. Why is that? It's a huge piece of gameplay, probably the funnest piece of gameplay that's being wasted. How should this solution happen? How should we do it? Well, it should drop in dungeons. We need a reason to go to dungeons. Okay? We need a reason to come back to dungeons to farm dungeons. And how are we going to farm dungeons? Well, more corruption is going to drop. And not only more corruption is going to drop, but different types of corruption. I have never played Classic, but I love the idea of just having even corruption that drops that says, hey, you have fire resistance. How awesome would it be if we have different sets for bosses, different sets for raids? And how do we do this? Well, we farm our gear. We have our main source of gear, maybe like a single target build where we do our most damage. But maybe, hey, I want like an AoE build with a certain type of corruption, and I'm going to have a whole different gear set that I farm from dungeons. So what's the benefit of this? For Blizzard, we're going to want to farm dungeons more often because we're going to need a lot more gear than we need now, and we're going to need a lot different corruption. Okay? So that gives us a reason to farm dungeons again. And that's a great plus. Now, what I think should be done, which would be a really fun way, is even though more corruption drops, there is still no way in the game to get a specific piece of corruption. I think that's wrong. So let's try and change that. Let's bring forth an idea. How about we go to Mother, and instead of taking away our corruption, she takes away our corruption and gives us a different currency, depending on how strong that corruption was, right? Let's say we get an infinite stars. Infinite stars is really expensive, okay? The more expensive that corruption is, the more of that currency we get back. So I'm going to farm dungeons for expensive corruptions. Why? Because it's going to give me more currency. Now, what I do with that currency is I go back to Mother and I say, hey, Mother, I actually want to buy a specific corruption from you. And of course, it's more expensive. It's more expensive, so we have to take some time doing it. This is going to be progression. We don't want it just to come easily. But we make 3 tiers of every piece of corruption, right? Or every piece of ability. So let's talk about fire resistance. So let's say, Mother, I want to buy a fire resistance so I can add to any piece of gear that I want, right? I'll cleanse all my gear that I get from Mythic Plus to get my currency. Maybe I'll even keep some of that gear so I can make a gear set to go against the dragon that's going to burn me and I have fire resistance. So I want to make a gear set with fire resistance. So what I can do is I can buy a piece of gear that gives me fire resistance rank 1. So now I can put it on one of my gear and I have a rank 1 fire resistance. Okay, maybe I go back to Mother with more currency and I say, hey, Mother, I want to buy another piece of fire resistance, and I can either put that fire resistance on a different piece of gear, or I can put it on the same piece of gear, and now that fire resistance, instead of rank 1, it's rank 2. Okay, and I can do the same thing rank 3 until I get to the point where, hey, I can make all of my gear rank 3 fire resistance, and this is a completely different gear set than my single target build. I think that would be really enjoyable. That way, it gives the option to players to really take advantage of corruption, not to spend millions of gold on something that they want when it could be nerfed in the future. That's it for me, guys. These are the things that I wanted to say, and I'm sorry if this video is already too long. I appreciate those that have listened. If you have any ability to get these ideas said, I don't care if you want to give me credit for it. The whole idea here is to make the game more fun, to provide Blizzard feedback in a way that's usable and not to put them down. Blizzard, we thank you for this wonderful game. We thank you for these great ideas you bring forth. Let's try to work those ideas into something more enjoyable, something that works a little better. But that's it, you guys. Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate it. Take it easy. Peace.